Welcome to No More Mondays, the podcast that helps you navigate career challenges through the wisdom of professionals who have been at the same crossroads. I'm your host, Angie Callan, and I welcome you to join me each week as I chat with leaders, entrepreneurs, and employees who are here to share practical, tactical advice and some inspiration on how they arrived at career satisfaction. From job searching and career changes to going out on your own, we're breaking down barriers and providing actionable takeaways to help you take charge of your Mondays and ditch the Sunday blues. Welcome to the No More Mondays movement. Hello and welcome to another episode of No More Mondays. As always, I am your host, Angie Callan. Challenges come up in all phases of our lives. It is almost a certainty. You know what? Take almost out of that sentence. It is a certainty. Life is not going to be perfect. But what if you were born with one of your biggest challenges? Today, you're going to meet Kevin Cassidy, a former Hollywood stuntman, school teacher, college and pro athlete, turned business owner, author, and speaker. Any of those alone would be crazy inspirational. But when you consider that Kevin was born with a severe cleft palate that caused significant speech impediment and a whole lot of bullying, you'll respect his accomplishments even more. Listen as Kevin and I talk about rising above, making your mess your message, and how you can turn what may seem like your biggest challenge into your greatest victory if you're willing to fall down to find yourself. Kevin's going to tell us all about how he's forged a mentality that has led to his success, and I am excited to learn a thing or two from him today, as I'm sure you will. So I hope you will all help me welcome Kevin Cassidy to the show. Kevin, welcome to No More Mondays.
Thank you for having me. That was a great introduction. That was awesome.
When I was going through your stuff earlier, I was like, oh, man, I don't know what to focus on because there is just so much to your backstory and even to what you're doing today that I'm like, man, how are we going to do this in like the 30 to 35 minutes we try to make these podcasts? But wherever this conversation goes, I know there's going to be some really great takeaways. And I think that we should start at the beginning because that's really where your story does start. So kind of tell us about those early years, the challenges that you faced. I know the bullying was a big part of that and really how that shaped who you are and created the foundation for some of the successes that then came as an adult.
Yeah, sure. So I'll try to make a long story short, which I'm never very good at, but I'll give it a shot. So I was born in New York, moved from New York to North Carolina when I was 10 years old. So mom was born and raised in Queens. Dad was born and raised in Brooklyn. We moved to Long Island. I was born with a severe birth defect, cleft palate. So there was a bubble around my nose and my mouth. There was no teeth, no roof in my mouth. I had to have a bunch of surgeries before I could even leave the hospital. And then I had to go through speech therapy since today I could learn how to talk. When every surgery would have a different kind of contraption in my mouth. I have to learn how to talk all over it again. And so that was one aspect I dealt with. And then that he doubled on to moving from New York City to North Carolina in 1987, where I brought a bagel to lunch and no one knew what it was. I thought it was a really bad donut.
You're serious? That's hilarious since bagels are on they're eaten in our house every morning.
Yeah, well, now Charlotte's a big New York northern hub and the banking's here and everything. But back then there wasn't a whole lot of northern influence down here. So we were blazing the trail down here, I guess, my family. So obviously that comes with bullying and teasing and all that stuff that most kids deal with at some level. I would say I was lucky enough to have to deal with it since the day I was born. I knew no different. It was always something to kind of attack. So it was kind of in that way easier for me to always just every year I got a little bit better, a little less funny looking and talked a little bit better. So I was always kind of making progress. So that, looking back always made it maybe a little bit easier. And especially for me, because it was literally on my face and how I spoke, I couldn't hide from it. I couldn't duck it. If you're a kid with a broken home or learning disability, you can kind of maybe walk around it. But no, it was something I had to attack face on. So that helped me at the end of the day build out my character and what was really important. And a lot of those lessons looking back that I learned have definitely helped me through life, go through transition after transition.
It had to be so frustrating as a child. We're trying to learn how to communicate already. And then you add on the fact that you're in surgeries and recovering from that. And just all of that very interesting, unique things that happen during critical developmental years of your life.
Yeah, I think in ways it fast forwarded some of it. It made me really reflect internally a lot earlier than most people do. It made me shut up a little bit and listen a little bit a lot earlier than some people do. Like when I would get teased or bullied, I would try to like de-escalate it. But when I opened my mouth, it would just get worse because they make fun of how I talked. So I learned just to either keep my mouth shut or go all in and we're fighting to the death. It was like one or the other.
Feast or famine.
As a kid, every kid learns. That's right. Yeah. And those, critical periods of like middle school is probably the worst for me. You're learning anyway, the lines across, like, does a girl like me? Does she not like me? Am I being annoying? That's adolescence. That's learning that. And I was kind of fast forward to learn that because I was dealing with it years and years earlier. And that's by the time I got to like high school, I had a lot of that kind of dialed in socially and dealing with different people and personalities and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it definitely heightens emotional intelligence at an age when you haven't developed that yet. And I'm curious, so you brought us in the timeline. Exactly where I wanted to go next was how did you channel all of that into success? Because everybody out there, like, Kevin's got some chops. Like, this guy's probably got an IMDb profile, right? Because, I mean, you've done some really amazing things that people work their whole lives and dream their whole lives of doing, like breaking into Hollywood. 8 Marvel films. We've probably all seen you on a big screen and not realized it. And college and pro athletics. Like, how did you take those struggles, and I would say a maturity that probably came out of those struggles, and channel that into the foundation and the successes in those earlier years?
Well, like every kid, probably, you kind of focused on your strengths. I was a good athlete, and sports was a good outlet for me. Like, I was angry sometimes and lonely sometimes, and that physical football outlet and stuff really helped me as a young boy. And I was also always a writer, and I dabbled in writing in creative world, and I was in the drama club and all that stuff. So it helped me branch out a little bit, know my strengths, and know what I could really dig my heels into and be good at. And then it also allowed me to not take that many things too seriously. Like, hey, you got a job? Yeah, you don't. Nothing, everything rolled off my shoulders pretty good my whole life because I dealt with some continuous, I'm going to call it trauma, but hardships over and over and over again. So things didn't really bother me too much. It wasn't, things weren't traumatic for me. I never had really high highs or really low lows. I always was able to kind of roll with the punches pretty good, which helped me go through a lot of like rejection in Hollywood. It's a really hard thing to break into, and life in general. So I think those things definitely, again, fast forwarded my development in those aspects.
Yeah, it's like you got that really thick skin, and it brought like the threshold for what really sucked in life was way higher than it is for a lot of people because you have a different perspective on it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's well put. Yeah. And at the end of the day, that makes you a little bit happier.
Exactly. And I want to talk about that happiness piece in a minute because we're gonna talk about the book in a little bit. But everybody out there who's like a Marvel fan and heard me say you're in Marvel films would be mad if I didn't ask which one was your favorite gig.
My first Marvel movie was Ant-Man, the first Ant-Man with Paul Rudd, and I was the bad guy stunt double, the Yellow Jacket. So everything in the Yellow Jacket supervillain costume was me getting beat up by Ant-Man the whole movie. That was probably my favorite because it was my first, and we had a lot of creative freedom to create that character that I was playing pretty much. Everything behind the suit was me, all the movements, and could the guy fly? Could he not fly? Could he jump high? He had these extra arms. Could he shoot people with them? Could he grab people with them? We were choreographing all the fights and building up the script and how this guy was going to interact in the script. And we were kind of inventing what powers he had, dealing with the Marvel people. And so that was really interesting behind the scenes development of the character that I was going to bring to life physically in front of the camera. So that was the other, I hadn't had that opportunity in the other ones. That was pretty cool glimpse. Yeah,
that's a really unique, because you're the villain who you really only see mostly in the action scenes, you're basically it, which is kind of really cool. And then you got to go back to your drama roots, which I wanted to say something when you mentioned that you were in drama. I find it really interesting that even in middle school and high school, when we're the most awkward we are in our entire lives, you put yourself in places that kind of almost like created exposure for you around your challenges and weaknesses. Like,
I never said I was very smart. I fell down for a living for a lot of years. So
hey, it worked out, and you're laughing at all of them, Yellow Jacket.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. No, for sure. Again, nature nurture. Who knows what caused it? But I never really cared that much. I enjoyed acting and the drama and the crew of friends that were doing that. And the drama teacher in middle school was awesome. It was kind of like a good vibe on to be around. So I just went for it, and that's kind of how I've always kind of lived. I don't know. Again, nature nurture. If I was never born with a disability, would I still done that? Would I have done it slower? You can't tell, but I used it to my advantage at least.
Well, and okay, so you segued perfectly into something I wanted to talk about, because we're going to talk about your book a little bit. And one of the things that I know you kind of speak to in the book is this idea of identity and the role it plays in happiness. And I feel like that goes back to this kind of like when you were younger, quote unquote, not caring so much because you had an identity that was rooted and you were confident in it. So therefore you could not care so much. So tell me more about that whole kind of idea of identity and happiness and just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, identity in general is kind of a hot topic nowadays and in today's world. But writing the book and looking back and being able to really dissect it over years, one of the reasons I was always basically a happy kid and successful in most things I did is because I didn't put much value in anything outward, anything external. I didn't internalize being the bully kid. It never really sunk into my heart. Like, you're the bully kid, no one likes you. I never put value in that, just like I never put value in the fact that I was a Hollywood stuntman, hanging out with famous people all the time, doing Marvel movies. I left that really quick, just like I left being the bully kid. It never got to me at a deep enough level that, and I think because I was forced to look inside earlier because of my birth defect and speech and bullying and all that stuff, I was internally reflected at a very early age. Where a lot of people will struggle with that, forever. They're always looking for external validation, external this, external that. Well, my external kind of sucked in the beginning. So if I want to be happy, I better look inside and be a good friend and be a good teammate and use my athletic prowess and build relationships that way. And that just became my default, and I became good at it. And then once I got good at that, I realized that's kind of what it's all about. Once you get that done in spades, everything else is kind of easy.
It's such a good message and so relatable. If you all haven't connected the dots, all of you out there yet, this is very much in line with the struggle of imposter syndrome we hear a lot about today in the both professional and entrepreneurial world. And that idea of, and social media, I dog on social media a lot. I use it though. So, hey, if that makes me a hypocrite, whatever. But it has not helped this whole external validation that has always existed. I think it's only made it worse because, we can therefore have a very tangible, how many likes did I get? That equals my worth kind of idea. And so that's just spiraled a lot of this out of control. And imposter syndrome has become such a hot topic that I think at the very core, this is exactly what you're talking about, is being comfortable and confident in who you are and who you were made to be, regardless of what anyone else thinks.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, how you react to imposter syndrome is the key that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, because we're all kind of faking it until you make it. We're all imposters a little bit. We're all beginners. And if you have some internal reflection of, oh, man, am I good enough to be here? That means you're humble enough to look inside and be like, okay, if I'm not, I better do things right. So if you react to your imposter syndrome in a humbling, let's work hard and prove myself, that's great. But if you react to, I'm just going to gloss all this over with ego and narcissism, and of course I'm supposed to be here, screw you, then you're a whole different kind of person. So I think we all go through imposter syndrome a little bit as we level up or even level down or anything. But how you deal with that imposter syndrome says a lot about you, and probably, honestly, at the end of the day, how happy you're going to be. Because those people who are super narcissistic, they're not happy people. And you only get one life. The people who are more humble and internally reflected seem to be happier. And when you get to the next level and you're like, man, should I be here? Am I in this boardroom? Am I in the right place? That's normal. You should feel that way a little bit. But double down with that, with proving that you should be there and not, putting your ego out there so no one else challenges you whether you should be there or not, if that makes any sense.
That was the mic drop moment of this podcast. It's literally, that doesn't get talked about enough, so much that I've never actually had that conversation. And I think it is such an amazing thing to think about, that imposter syndrome can actually be a good thing if you can figure out how to use it constructively, just like any like all emotions have a positive and negative. All situations have a positive and negative. And very much like your whole story, you could have just played the victim your whole life and shrunk and said, I got this thing. It defines me. It's my identity. Instead of turning that around and figuring out how to use it for your own success and like the greater good and impact. Just like that idea of if you have imposter syndrome, it does have some truth, but it's how you take that truth and spin it and what you tell yourself about it. I love that idea of imposter syndrome has some validity. If you're ever going to do something you've never done, there's some imposter syndrome there. However, you can channel that into, I love that idea of like the humbleness and the awareness of then what you constructively do with it and grow from it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just, and I mean, we've all been there. We've all had, and I think it has a negative connotation because most people do think of, imposter syndrome. This guy is not supposed to be here. He's the mole or he's the black sheep. But I think it starts before that. And then maybe it's called something different before it evolves to imposter syndrome. So maybe I jumped over some definitions and we can define the beginning of imposter syndrome as something else. But it's definitely something there, I think.
Well, and this is just a funny thing. It's totally like a misnomer because it's more of a condition and not a syndrome. But that's a whole like psychological conversation for another day. Your book, I absolutely love this title. It's called Your Book is Falling Down to Find Yourself. I know I can definitely relate to that idea of like you hit the low, but then it ends up being the foundation that all of the kind of, blessings come from. And I'm curious in where that specific like title inspiration came from. So for you, was there a breaking point? Like there was a fall that helped you find yourself and rise again? Or do you feel like it was almost like that culmination of life and looking at hindsight and all the things that really informed it?
I think a little bit of both. There was 2 or 3 pretty big major falls in my life. And then I dealt with those falls better than most, presumably, because of my background. And, actually, I've been through falls like this a lot or consistently growing up. And again, the fact that it didn't put too much power or value in the fall or identity in the fall or kind of fell back on that, my default was able to get me out of that fall way quicker than most people. I got wrongfully arrested in college. I was playing college baseball and I got thrown in jail, was facing 25 years to life for a crime I didn't commit. They slammed the door and they said, we'll see you in 5 years for your trial. Good luck. And I lived in jail for 2 weeks without even talking to anybody, thinking I was going to be there the rest of my life. So that was another internal reflective moment. Luckily, I wasn't. 2 weeks go by and I'm out, and they expunged all the charges. I had to sign an NDA saying I wouldn't sue, for defamation of character and all that. But I lost my scholarship, got kicked out of college because of the bad press. And again, long story short, that was a pretty big fall because I was on the pro scout list and I was doing well, and all that kind of went out the window after that experience. So there was no currency back then in the victim mentality. Now there's a currency in it. Now there's a value in it. My parents, in the book I love my mom. She's awesome. We just had her 80th birthday at my house last weekend. But she's not painted great in the book in the beginning. She was lovably oblivious, I say. And to this day, she goes, I never knew you were being bullied. I'm like, Mom, I didn't have a face. I was in junior high in a rough school.
Yeah, but you're right. We weren't. I think you're right. There wasn't as much awareness around this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and she never treated me as if I was. And if I was bullied, she'd be like, figure it out. I got to go to work. And there was no, there's no currency. There was nothing you could do with it. So you were forced to just be like, I guess I can't be a bully. It was never an option. And now it's like almost people are selling that option to people, just for their more clicks and their more likes or their more whatever. And also getting away from bullying nowadays is impossible because you take it home with you on social media. If I had a Facebook account in like junior high, I would be bullied 24 hours a day. There'd be no break. But in my junior high, it was like maybe 25, 30% of the day. Bad days are 50%, good days are 0%. And I got home and no one brought it up. And, you go out and ride bikes and you're a normal kid. But now it'd be hard to step away to grow like I did with the internet and social media and all that stuff. So that was a little tangent I went on, but that's where my head went.
Well, but I think it's related because I think if you wonder, if you stop and think, I wonder if mom's loving obliviousness was actually a huge blessing.
Absolutely.
Because it forced you to find your own coping mechanisms, be independent. You didn't have somebody to complain or kind of whine to, which would be easy. And, you know, you had to like figure it out. I'm sure parents out there are like today are like, but I am also, side note, my tangent, really happy I graduated college before social media came out. Woo!
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't need any of that to be documented. So all of this stuff has supported kind of the next phase that you're in, which is business, Ninja Nation Huntersville, killer name. And helping teams and individuals and a lot of youth work through this kind of stuff. So talk to me about that work and also kind of how this concept relates to the real world and professionals and all the things.
Yeah, so I was in the movie, I was 18 years, almost 18 years in the movie business, and I loved it. Young man's game. I was in London and Prague on Spider-Man Far From Home. I was there for about 4 months. I came home one weekend for my daughter's birthday, flew right back to London. And it was just I couldn't be a father and a stuntman because in Hollywood they own you. It's 80, 90 hours a week, 100 hours a week, nights and weekends all over the world. So I was ready to leave Hollywood and I had a bunch of business plans written. So I've always been like pulled to mentor and coach. And now with 18 years of Hollywood stunt credits and everything, I have a pretty good hook to actually have people listen to me and worked all that into, you know, my story of my birth and all that and all those hardships. So when COVID hit, movies stopped filming. And I said, okay, well, I need to make money. And I want to leave movies anyway. So let's open a business. In my stunt career, I knew a lot of American Ninja Warriors, parkour athletes, Red Bull athletes, like skydivers and motocross guys, and the whole random world of random athletes in the stunt world. And I really gravitated towards like the X Games guys, the motocross guys, the parkour guys, the ninja guys, because they just had a really cool community. They would lose a race and hug the guy who won and really care and love the guy who won. I mean, you don't see that in other sports. So I said, no, I'm going to do a business like that. I was researching other companies that were doing something similar. I couldn't get an insurance number. No one would insure Ninja Warrior parkour stuff. And a company in Colorado, actually, outside Denver, was a Ninja Warrior place. I went out there, visited them. They were just starting to franchise it, and they wanted me to open up one of their franchises. So we decided to build one of their. I'm the second ever franchisee of Ninja Nation. Now there's 2 franchises and 10 more being built around the country. So I'm helping build that brand, and every new franchisee who buys one, I talk to them about business ownership and pros and cons and investment and where to go with it. And I'm able to kind of like develop new programs that work or doesn't work so we can copy and paste that through the other locations. So I'm kind of at the tip of the spear of a new franchise and a business model that very similar to when I wrote.
What a great match. And also what a great like melding of like all of your experiences. But that's like now, but that business is going to run itself. So now you can go do the other things.
Exactly right. So once the business is kind of up and running, I've always had presentations written. I always wanted to be a speaker and tell my story to kids, even if it's only kids with cleft palates or only kids with deformities. And then it just might as well be all kids because everyone has, and if it's not physical, it could be emotional, it could be, who knows. I had all these presentations written about stories in my life, about Hollywood, philosophical paradoxes that kind of like weaved into the story. And when COVID hit, the business was running. There was a lot of downtime in the business because the general contractor had to do this next thing and nothing else could happen for like 2 weeks. I had to wait for the bank to get back to me. I had to wait till this guy. So I'm like, oh, keep writing. So at the end of that, the book was almost done, and the book got published end of September. And now the business kind of runs itself, and now I'm on to the book and the speaking and writing curriculum around the book, going to schools and sharing the message, bringing that message into the gym, obviously, with the kids who I have in there. So kind of hitting at both ends of it.
Kevin is what we like to call and I stole this term from a TED Talk, a multi-potentialite. And you have found a way to leverage all of it. But I want to make an important practical kind of observation here is you didn't try to do all of that at once. It was kind of like building blocks. And because if you had tried to go do all of those things, it would be overwhelming. So just from like a straight up business perspective, you're adding layers to kind of, but it all still relates, and it also relates to your story, which is the super cool thing, is that you can have a brand that's got multiple different kind of little avenues under it, revenue streams even, that might not seem related, but you can find that kind of common theme and tie them all together, and then you stack them all together, and then you've got your empire going on over there, Kevin.
That's right. It's all built around, if you're passionate about it, then you'll be happy to do it. So it was all things I was passionate about, and the business got off the ground. And doing the franchise really helped because they had the website done. They had the POS done. They had the marketing material. They had the Facebook optimization. They had all the things I was going to school at, not literally, but YouTube school and just entrepreneurial school of how to do it, how to best do. I was going to run 3 or 4 times to figure it out. So my time was more mine because I was involved in the franchise. It actually helped me do the other things as well. But you definitely can't do 10 things great. You got to do one and then build on it.
Well, and in this situation, you found a way to do exactly what you really wanted to do, but you didn't have to go reinvent the wheel, which is super smart. So good creative solution as Kevin takes over the world. So if you're taking over the world, let's help everybody else out there do the same. We'll all take over the world together. So I would love to, because your story alone has got a great practical advice in it, but let's give everybody some just good pointed tips. So my first question is, what specific advice do you have out there for people who kind of are facing these circumstances where they feel debilitated or they've fallen down, they can't figure out how to get up, can't find themselves? Like, what's a good first step for them to take?
I think a lot of it revolves around living under your means. If you're a slave to how much money you need to make, then you're going to be trapped by your job, and then your options are going to shrink and shrink and shrink, and that little window to crawl out of is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So if you really hate your job but need the money, then you got to find a way to either do a side hustle, sell your house, get a smaller house, get financially free. Because once you're financially free, then you can be creatively and professionally free, and you can do something that you're going to be happy and probably make more money at the end of the day if you want. Not that everyone's money motivated, but getting out of that, I think living below your means has allowed me to just leave teaching and pick up and move to LA and figure it out. Again, I was young. I didn't have a family. So once if you're older with a family and bills and responsibility, it gets a lot more complicated. But you can still do that. You can still cut down your bills and get a side hustle and see the long game. 5 years from now, cool, I'll live in a townhouse, not a house, but I'll be able to leave this job and have more options. So I think that's something people think they can never get out of, but they can.
It's a choice. Let's just be honest. Hard truth, everybody. You're choosing not to make the change. And you just hit so many. I'm going to get on a soapbox for a few minutes. And since it's my podcast, I'm allowed to get on a soapbox. I just wrote a blog article, shameless plug, about 9 things to consider before making a career change. And I think number 2 is get yourself financially fit. Because I have worked with people who come in and they say, I want to do something else. And by the time we go through all of the parameters and life needs, they can't, quote unquote, won't make the financial decisions or give up elements of a quality of life to put themselves in a different position or a different pay bracket. And I'm not saying you have to take a pay cut to change careers, but you have a whole lot more options if you've got yourself in a good financial position. And you're preaching to the choir because you're talking to somebody who convinced my husband to build a tiny home inside of a bus that we lived in for 4 years so that I could funnel all of our money into career benders. So, point made, Kevin.
I love it. Verbal ahead. Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
Exactly. All right. So we know Falling Down to Find Yourself is a great book recommendation. I would love another read or two that you think is a great suggestion for people around this topic.
You first, career second, because you got to build yourself up to be happy and be good at a career. Like the teachers I'm coaching and talking to nowadays, the happier you are, the more fulfilled you are internally, and the more fired up you are about life, the better teacher you're going to be. And that happens in every aspect of career as well, but really tangibly for me for education. So a lot of the books I read are biographies or Ego is the Enemy, Ryan Holiday, Stoicism stuff. I read a lot of Stoic philosophy. Then books like The Art of Not Giving a F. Those kind of those kind of books are the ones that I kind of tilt my focus on, the person over, and now the person is my brand and my business. So I guess that makes sense. But
Kevin and I have the same bookshelf. That shocks none of us, I don't think. As soon as we came on, because you guys all know there, I could see him even though you can't. Dare to lead is in the, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna get along great. But there's 2 or 3 really good suggestions in there. And if you don't love to read this kind of stuff, I will actually throw out a recommendation for an app called Blinkist, which is super cool. I'm going to date myself. It's basically podcast meets Cliff's Notes. And in 18 minutes, you can listen to a digest of highlights of a book as an audio file. So that's what I do every morning on my way home from the gym. And I've loved it. And then that way, if I really like the highlights that I'm hearing and I want more info, I can actually buy the book. But I pretty much can't buy any more books. My shelves are full. So I like all of those. We're going to drop links to everything that Kevin has suggested, including his book, on the show notes at nomoremondays.info. So you can pick all this stuff up there. And then, of course, all right, so this is the last on the spot question. But this is a show about how you can like Mondays more. So what's the first word that comes to mind when I say Monday?
Right now it's school, because kids get in school and I have some time to do some stuff. But being in Hollywood for so long, there were no Mondays. You worked weekends and nights and all over the world, and calendars. It didn't matter. I was never into a 9 to 5 kind of Monday blues kind of vibe, because Hollywood is just 24/7.
It's 24/7 blues.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're either full on or full off. So in a way, it's actually kind of nice that now you've got the ability to create a routine and have Mondays. So welcome to Mondays, Kevin.
Well, nice for having me. The routine is great. That's something I'm forcing myself to do, which is something I've heard on some podcasts. And a guy I follow, I read his book, Jesse Itzler. He wrote Living with a Seal, and a guy named David Goggins, that whole world. But one of his things is do something hard every day. And I think people don't do that. So one of my habits is to do something hard, to challenge yourself, to put yourself in a position to fail, to humble yourself, do something hard, and then the rest of the day won't be as hard. Kind of like a microcosm of my life. Like, hey, it was kind of tough getting beat up all the time, but that made
you did it anyway.
A little less hard. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, take a cold shower, wake up an hour earlier, small things. Then once a month or once a quarter, he does something really hard, like hikes Everest or something stupid like that. But you can do little things hard to challenge yourself a little bit every day to build that resilience. I think that's something that, because it's so easy to be lazy. The world is easy. Everyone's got air conditioning.
It's easy to be, I would say, comfortable.
Comfortable, absolutely right. Yeah, yes.
Yeah. And what's that cliche? And I think cliches are things for a reason, because they're usually true. That growth doesn't happen inside the comfort zone. So there you go.
Yeah.
Ooh, we're gonna ask you. I have a feeling I'm gonna really like what's coming up next. Not to put pressure on you, but as we start to wind things down, which makes me sad because I have about 20 other things I want to talk to you about. I first would love for you to tell everybody how they can find you, follow along your journey, book you for speaking, get the book, all the things.
Book, Amazon, everything. I have a website. It's kevincass.com, KevinCass. And all my speaking, I'm starting to write little Substack articles, like 5-minute little reads about some of my philosophies or whatever comes in my head, always kind of towards this personal growth mindset. And all that's on my website. So my speaking gigs, and I'm writing a curriculum around the book. I'm working on a children's book as well, to put a children's book version of the book. But that's something I just started, so I'm researching the to-dos on that, and I think that'd be a good fit down the road. Could happen faster, who knows? But everything kind of gets dumped onto my website right now, and I'm constantly reorganizing it and focusing it on what I'm doing.
And it is linked, everybody. So if you're looking for a great stocking stuffer, Falling Down to Find Yourself could be excellent for the reader in your life. I love it. I have so many ideas on things that I want to do with, like, what to do together because of your perspective on things. So I have a feeling all of you No More Mondays and Career Banders fans out there haven't seen the last of Kevin Cassidy. And as we wrap up this first conversation together, I would love to know what our listeners could do to get one step closer to career satisfaction?
I said to do the hard thing. Wake up an hour early. Do some little thing hard every day or every week or every month. Put it on your calendar. Do one thing that's going to challenge yourself. Force yourself out of that comfort zone, and that will translate into career, which will translate into life and everything. It'll just make you a little bit better every day. Every day you do it, or even knowing it's out there. My wife just signed up for the half marathon in Nashville. She's like, I got to circle it. You got to do it now. And guess what? She'll be better for it. And so now she's trying to talk me into it. So it's kind of hard for me to say no after all my soapboxing. So
I was just going to say, good luck getting out of that one.
Exactly.
I was hoping you were going to reiterate that, because I think it is an excellent a piece of advice and one action you could take. And it's easy to just, I was telling a client this yesterday because we're trying to get him into a routine, funny enough. And I was like, add one thing to your routine this week, add another thing next week, and then stack it. Because if you just try to it's like the whole quitting smoking cold turkey thing. It's just, if you try to change everything at once, you're going to do it for 3 weeks and then you're going to stop. Whereas if you slowly add things on, you will actually see incremental change. Inching yourself forward actually does get you somewhere. Snails move, everybody. Snails move. So I love this idea of add one hard thing to your schedule every day.
Yeah. Tangible takeaway. And you'll feel pretty good immediately. It's pretty good. Everyone wants that instant gratification nowadays. And that's something that has it, not as much as the dopamine on the Facebook screen, but it definitely has some instant gratification. You definitely feel better, more accomplished for it. Yeah.
And a whole lot healthier than the dopamine on a Facebook screen. Kevin, this has been an amazing conversation. I am so excited that you are finally officially part of the No More Mondays movement, because I feel that you embody it top to bottom. And I appreciate you sharing your wisdom and your experience and your insights with us today, because there is some exceptional advice here. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you very much. It was awesome.
Yeah, this has been so good. We always love hearing from people who have navigated career and life crossroads, done some really, really big things, and then, in Kevin's case, decided to leave the big things behind for a career option that supports life better. So there's been some great advice and inspiration here. I hope all of you took some notes, and we'll tune in again next week for another episode of No More Mondays. In the meantime, for all of you out there listening, I would love for you to subscribe to No More Mondays. Leave us a 5-star rating, because Kevin and I are awesome. Go buy his book in the show notes, and everything that you do to support our podcast is a huge help as we continue to inspire confident professionals with amazing stories. And if you would like to leave us comments, feedback, drop a guest suggestion, or grab all the links from today's episode, visit us online at nomoremondays.info. See you again next week.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of No More Mondays. Tune in next week as we bring you more insights and actions to help you improve your professional life and find career satisfaction. Don't forget, visit us online at nomoremondays.info for all the details, show notes, and recommendations from this episode. No More Mondays, we drop new episodes every Wednesday.
No More Mondays is brought to you by Career Benders, Inc. in partnership with executive producer Jane Durkee. For more information about career coaching, resume writing, personal branding, recruiting, and entrepreneurship coaching services, visit our website at careerbenders.com.